Casino employees, what's some of the saddest moments you witnessed? Story 1. There were these two middle-aged Greek or Cypriot ladies who were always on the slot machines. Every single day, without fail, they'd be there when I started my shift, sitting side by side, focused on the glowing screens. 10 hours later, when I clocked out, they'd still be there, same seats, same machines, same clothes. Sometimes, I'd come back the next day and find them in exactly the same position, like they hadn't moved at all. But despite practically living at the casino, they were always super nice, never rude, never demanding, and always polite to the staff. Everyone liked them. One day, their dedication, or maybe obsession, paid off in the most dramatic way. Out of nowhere, they hit the jackpot. And it wasn't just a small win. This was the kind of money that could change lives. It was either £15,000 or £45,000. I can't quite remember because it was years ago, but it was a jaw-dropping sum. The machine lit up, music blared, and they sat there stunned for a moment, their hands over their mouths. Then they erupted in laughter and tears. It was like watching a feel-good movie in real life. Everyone on the floor was thrilled for them. Even the other regulars who might have been envious couldn't help but smile and cheer. We were clapping, and some of the staff even hugged them. It was a real moment of joy, like the universe had finally rewarded their persistence. Well, almost everyone was happy for them. The managers? Not so much. You could see the forced smiles on their faces, the barely concealed panic behind their congratulations. To the casino, a jackpot is less of a win and more of an expensive PR nightmare. So naturally, they had a plan. Within hours, they offered the ladies free meals at the restaurant and an open bar tab. It was all on the house, no limits. It seemed generous, even celebratory, but everyone knew what was really happening. The casino wasn't about to let them leave with that money. Over the next week, the ladies came in every day, enjoying the VIP treatment. Lobster, steaks, cocktails, the works. But they were also back on the slot machines, spinning and spinning, the free drinks flowing like water. By the time the dust settled, every single penny of their jackpot had been clawed back into the casino. The ladies didn't seem upset, though. Story 2. We used to have this woman who would sit at the blackjack tables for 5 days and nights straight. And I mean straight. It was like she'd completely disconnected from the outside world. No sense of time, no concern for anything beyond the cards in front of her. She'd barely eat, hardly sleep, and only got up when absolutely necessary. You could see it wearing her down, but she just kept going, eyes fixed on the table, chasing losses or trying to ride a streak. Her husband would call the casino in a panic, asking if anyone had seen her. He'd beg us to tell her that her kids wanted her to come home, that they missed her and needed her. We'd pass along the messages as gently as we could, but she'd just brush them off like it was nothing, like the real world didn't exist anymore. One time, her boss actually showed up at the casino, looking absolutely furious but also desperate. She'd been missing work for days without even calling in, and they couldn't get hold of her. He stood there by the table, pleading with her to leave, but she barely even looked up. It was like he wasn't there at all. Eventually, she disappeared from the casino, and none of us ever saw her again. No one knew what happened to her, whether she finally hit rock bottom and sought help, or whether the hole she was digging for herself just got deeper and deeper. Honestly, we all feared the worst. It was hard not to. You see enough people like that, and you start to realize that most of these stories don't end well. And speaking of not ending well, we had more than a few regulars whose stories took darker turns. Some of them couldn't cope with the losses and the debt, and we'd later find out they'd taken their own lives. Those hit the staff hard because, even though they were customers, we saw them every day, got to know them, and sometimes even liked them. Seeing their seats empty and knowing why, that was tough. Others went in a different direction and ended up in jail. Theft, fraud, drugs, you name it. Some got desperate and started stealing from family or embezzling from work just to keep playing. There was one guy who worked in finance and got arrested after siphoning money from clients' accounts to fund his gambling habit. Another regular tried to rob a convenience store with a kitchen knife after losing everything one night. He was back in the casino a week later, out on bail like nothing had happened. Story 3. I'm late here, so this probably won't get seen, but people with gambling addictions really need to get help. I witnessed firsthand some tragic shit at the casino. I worked valet at a casino and brought down one of the regulars' truck. He seemed his usual self, handed me $5 and said have a good day. As I'm walking off, I hear a clap. Kinda sounded like someone dropped something really heavy. Turned around and didn't see anything so well. Went and brought down the next car and realized dude's truck is still there. I pull up next to it, and his head is laid back with blood all over the side window. To make matters worse, right about that time his daughter, probably in her early 20s, comes out screaming and falling on the ground because she saw her dad shot himself. Then the BF or bother, not sure, came out and was trying to lift her off the ground because she looked like she was about to faint. The whole situation was just so tragic. I can seriously still her screams saying, "No dad, no." Makes my eyes water just thinking about it. The casino offered free counseling to us that were there, and I talked to someone a couple times. It was hard to take all that in. Rumor was that he obviously went in and lost a shit ton, so he went out in his truck and ended it. Story 4. Former valet at a casino here. I saw a lot during my time there, things that would make you laugh, shake your head, or just leave you feeling hollow. But the most depressing part? The sheer number of daily regulars who drove barely functioning vehicles that looked like they belonged in a scrapyard. These cars weren't just old, they were disasters, filled with trash, empty fast food containers, cigarette butts, and sometimes even actual vermin. I'm talking roaches scuttling out from under seats, and, in one particularly memorable case, a live rat that darted out of a glove box when I reached for the keys. And these people weren't just passing through or stopping by for fun. They were regulars. They'd show up day after day, hand over their keys with a smile, and then march straight inside to gamble away the little money they had. It was painfully obvious that for most of them, the cars were a reflection of their lives, barely held together, slowly falling apart, and completely neglected in favor of chasing some impossible jackpot. The saddest one I remember was this little old lady, easily over 90 years old, who drove a 1991 Toyota Corolla. She was tiny and frail, the kind of person you'd expect to see knitting or baking cookies for grandkids, not pulling into a casino valet line. She shuffled out of the car with a purse clutched tightly to her chest and a warm smile for the staff, but when I got into her car to park it, my heart sank. The steering wheel barely moved. At first, I thought something was jammed, but then I realized there was no power steering fluid at all. It took every bit of strength I had to turn the wheel, and I couldn't imagine how this elderly woman had managed to drive it all the way to the casino. Her arms looked like they'd snap if she carried anything heavier than a handbag, yet somehow, she'd been muscling that car around town. The worst part? When we told her about it, she just shrugged it off, like it wasn't a big deal. She said something about being used to it and shuffled off toward the slot machines. We couldn't let her drive home like that, so one of the other valets ran out to buy some power steering fluid. We filled up the reservoir before she left that evening, but even then, she didn't seem to think it was worth the fuss we made. She thanked us politely, slipped a crumpled dollar bill into my hand as a tip, and drove off into the night like it was just another routine. Story 5. During my 8-hour shift, a gentleman won $15,000 on a slot machine, punched out at end of shift, and had the next 2 days off. Returned to work after my weekend to find the man still sitting at the same slot machine. He had been there for 2+ days, losing $15,000. Some of the comments from Redditors. If you win that much money, pretty much have the mentality in which you will never win this much again. I live next to Atlantic City, and when I'm up like $50, I walk out of the casino and play in the ocean for a few hours. I always feel as if the casino paid me to have a fun beach day. I do something like this. I only ever enter the casino with $270 in cash on me and leave my wallet, besides ID, in the car. If I double up, I'll go put that money back in the car and go back inside and play until that money is either gone or I hit an amount I'm comfortable with walking away. If I lose the second $270, well, I broke even. If I lose the first $270, I just leave. Takes some mental fortitude to do, but is the only way I'll gamble at the table anymore. Story 6. My mom works as a dealer at a casino and has told me multiple stories of grown men wearing adult diapers at the table so they don't have to leave to use the restroom. Few comments from Redditors. How does this happen? Doesn't the casino kick out someone who shits themselves? This seems like it would clear out a large part of the floor at least. I once saw/smelled a grown-ass old man shit himself in a bar drunk, and you would have sworn the place was on fire as to how quickly people scrambled out. Oh, totally. I worked at a casino in FL for a few years and saw a lot of these people. One guy sat at a slot machine for over 24 hours just pissing in his pants. There was so much piss on the floor that the casino eventually called the Seminole Police Department to come get him. I was just outside the doors when they were escorting him out, and I heard him ask, "Why the hell do I have to leave?" The SPD officer replied, "Sir, you've urinated in your pants numerous times." The guy then yelled out, "So what? I own these pants. They're my pants to piss in." Well, at least they wear diapers. We've had people just piss/shit themselves and sit in it, no diaper. Or they walk around and shake it out the bottom of their pants. This is in Australia. They do get kicked out after the incident. You never know who will do it though, so there's no way to prevent it. Story 7. Worked with this woman who was the absolute definition of a gambling addict. She'd clock out after a long shift and head straight to the casino floor, paycheck in hand. And I mean, she wouldn't even hesitate. She'd cash out her entire 2-week paycheck and burn through it within 15 minutes, just like that. You'd blink, and it was gone. Then, as if nothing had happened, she'd march over to the ATM, max out her withdrawals, and start writing checks like the money was endless. It wasn't, of course. It never is. But that didn't stop her. Her family was completely destroyed by it. At first, people gossiped about how her husband was desperately trying to get her to stop, but it was like talking to a brick wall. The bills piled up, the kids went without, and the debt collectors started circling. Eventually, her husband just couldn't take it anymore. He killed himself. That hit everyone hard, even those of us who didn't know him personally. We all felt this awful mix of sadness and dread because deep down, we knew it wasn't going to stop her. And it didn't. She ended up getting a life insurance payout, or some kind of death benefit fund, and no surprise, she blew all of it within a month. A month. Not on bills, not on setting her kids up for a stable future, just straight into slot machines and blackjack tables. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion, except she was driving the train and didn't care about the damage. But it gets worse. Not long after, her dad passed away and left her a decent inheritance. For a brief second, people thought maybe this would be the moment she turned her life around, that she'd finally see what she was doing to herself and her family. Nope. She lost all of that inheritance within 2 months. 2 months. Tens of thousands of dollars, maybe more. Gone. After that, she just kind of disappeared. One day she was there, and the next she wasn't. No one knew where she went or what happened to her, and honestly, no one wanted to know. It was like she'd burned through everything, her money, her family, her friends, and then vanished. But the thing is, she wasn't even the only one like that. Casinos attract people like her, people who can't stop themselves even when it's destroying everything they have. I remember one guy who used to come in wearing a suit and acting like a big shot. He'd buy drinks for strangers, tip the staff generously, and talk about his business like he was some kind of mogul. Then one day, he pulled up in this battered old car with a broken taillight and duct tape holding the bumper on. Turns out he'd lost everything, the business, his house, even his wife. And yet, there he was, still gambling, still chasing losses he'd never recover. Story 8. We had to evacuate and close down for the rest of the day, due to a burst pipe causing no running water. When I walked outside, there was an elderly lady throwing a legit tantrum in the parking lot. She was on the ground kicking and screaming. Her screams sounded like something you'd expect from someone who'd just lost a family member, not someone who had to leave the casino for a few hours. I left, but some of the security who were dealing with her told me later she was too upset to drive home, and they had to call a family member to pick her up. I've seen some shit. A lot of what others have commented is fairly common, but this was definitely the most messed up. Story 9. I was a cashier for the food outlets in the casino. I saw a kid come into the diner inside the casino. He sat down and just stared straight ahead with a blank look on his face. Server went up to him, and the kid asked, "How do I tell my parents I just lost my college money?" I'm sure there were more, but that's the main one I remember. Also, if you go to casinos, please don't treat the employees like shit, because you fucked up and lost all your money. It's not our fault you don't have any self-control. I'm happy I don't work there anymore. It was honestly the lowest point in my life. Edit, just remembered another one. College-age couple comes in, and are there for a while. The girl goes into the bathroom, and the guy waits outside. After about 15 minutes, he asks a passing lady to check on her, because she hasn't answered his text. Lady comes back out and grabs a security guard. The girl had sliced her wrists while in the bathroom with her boyfriend, waiting maybe 15 feet away. Luckily, I was on my way out that night, so I wasn't around for the rest of it. It was the bathroom right by the outlet I was working in. Might be too late, but I remembered a couple other ones. First off, it's a native, no real significance outside the smoking in the building, casino/hotel, and there's an entryway that cuts the two off from each other, so you don't get the casino noises in the hotel, and the banquet halls, which are right there, don't have to deal with the cigarette smell. On the hotel side of this entryway is a set of bathrooms. I'm working at the coffee shop, which is on the casino side, is the entryway. All of a sudden this guy comes booking it out into the casino section with another guy chasing him, tackling him to the ground, and proceeding to beat the shit out of guy number 1. Security arrives and breaks up the fight, and is focusing on guy 2, figuring he's the aggressor, while guy 1 books it. Come to find out, guy 2 walked into the bathroom, and walked in on guy 1 molesting a young boy, and was beating the piss out molester. The molester took off out of the casino, and I never heard if he was caught. Guy 2 I don't believe was ever charged with anything, but I'm not positive. I did not see him walked off in handcuffs for what it matters. And one of the servers in the diner was working on her birthday, and her mom and her sister got a hotel room, and were coming up to visit for her birthday. Her dad was out of town for work and wouldn't be able to make it. When she goes on break, her mom and sister are in the restaurant, so she gets permission from the supervisor to go over to the hotel side and up to their room to have birthday cake and have a little extra time on her break. They get up to the room, and turns out her dad was able to get away from work and visits, and they wanted to surprise her. They walk in and her dad is on the ground not moving. He had a heart attack while waiting for everyone to get back to surprise his daughter. He ended up passing away. Needless to say, management told her she was done for the day and got the rest of her week covered while all the funeral arrangements and such were made, and since she was newer, they made sure to go over the bereavement leave policy. Story 10. I have 2, bear with me. Third day dealing. Fresh out of dealer school, I've been in industry 10 years now. But anyways, I get put on a game called Pai-Gow Tiles. Very difficult game to learn, and I loved it. It is difficult for Americans because we are so used to poker rules. In this game, a pair of 4s beats the pair of 10s. Why? Fuck you, that's why. Anyways, third day dealing, on a 25-minute game. Guy is betting 50 to 150 consistently for 3 hours. He builds it up to about 3K. Started with about $500. He slides it all on one hand. We wish him good luck. He sets his hand, excited, showing the table his monster hand. I, the dealer, pull what's called G-Goon/Teen Bow. It is literally unbeatable. It is the god hand. It is pair of aces, pair of kings. His hand was equal to pair of queens, pair of jacks. For you dealers, he had die bow/gore bow. A 99.9% winner in every other instance. He slams the table, chips fly everywhere, and he begins to self-induce vomit. He succeeds. Splatters everywhere. Security is on him within seconds. Banned for life. Whole pit closes due to biohazard. He did not leave a tip. Second story, dealing about 9 years now. I'm dealing Pai-Gow poker, not tiles like above. Full table. This game involves a lot of pushes, which is why I enjoy playing. $200 bucks at 10 to 20 a hand can have you playing for 2 hours no problem due to so many pushes. The reason to play this game is the bonus bet. Catching 4 of a kind, straight flushes, royal flushes pay huge. Even if you lose the hand and have a bonus, the bonus pays. Now the twist is if you bet $5 or more, you get envy bonus, which means if anyone else at the table hits a monster bonus, you get paid some dollar too. 5 players playing, for play bonus, and have envy active. The 1 player not playing bonus bets his last $15, no money for bet and the bonus, and wakes up with the best hand possible. 7 cards straight flush, no joker. Joker is a wild card used to make straights, flushes, or act as a 5th ace. He shows the table, everyone cheers, and is excited because their $5 bet wins them each $5,000. If the man had played it, his bonus would have paid 8,000 to 1. $5 nets him 40K, but he didn't play it. So he shows the table, look, I didn't play the bonus. I am going to win nothing, while you all win $5,000 each through envy. Will each of you throw me $1,000, so we all walk away with $4,000 each? They start screaming at him, shouting, no, fuck you. How dare you ask us that, we earned this. Etc., etc. He kind of frowns and lets out a small sigh. Mucks the hand to the dealer. The table loses it. NOLO. What the fuck are you doing? Take it back. We'll split. We'll give you the 1,000. I, the dealer, inside him like, fuck yeah bro. Screw those greedy assholes. They all get 5K each off your hand while you win nothing? They call managers over demanding they be paid, because he had the bonus hand. But until it is legally set by the player and the dealer reveals it to the camera, the patron may fold their hand freely and forfeit their bet. He walked away shouting back, "Hey, we all could have had $4,000 each, but you wanted to be greedy." It was fantastic. So I guess it's sad for those greedy people. Story 11. There was a regular poker player at the casino I used to work at a few years ago. Let's call him Mike. Mike was one of the sweetest regulars we had. He was always kind, even when he lost his ass. Polite, tipped well, friendly with everyone. Just a dream customer. One afternoon he was sitting in the poker game, and a lady who none of us had ever seen before comes up behind him and smacks him across the back of his head. She starts screaming at him, "You lost our houses. What are you doing? You've lost everything, and you're still here." The whole casino has frozen at this point, and everyone is staring. Mike grabs a rack from under the table, puts his chips in it, and heads to the cage without saying a word or making eye contact with anyone. As Mike is cashing out, the lady, who we can safely assume is his wife, starts yelling at everyone in the casino. "You're all sick. What's wrong with you? You sick people all need help." Eventually they left, Mike with eyes staring at the ground and his wife right behind, yelling the whole way. That was 3 years ago. The man played every day for over a decade. We never saw him again. Story 12. Way too many in 10 years of dealing table games. I've seen people lose a lot of money until they cried at my table, people sitting at machines and being there the next day I came to work smelling like actual shit. A regular always brought her disabled kid in a wheelchair and put them next to her while she gambled for almost a day each time. I had a guy who clearly had dementia at my table, and even with complaints they still allowed him to play. He could barely make hand signals and kept forgetting we were in the middle of hands. It didn't help that he was tipping the beverage server, well, so he got massively overserved alcohol. Reports on these people should have made it, so they couldn't continue doing this stuff, but it never actually changed anything. The worst was a few tables away from me a guy's girlfriend was trying to get him to leave, and he got so pissed he tried to choke her to death right at the table. He ran from security into the woods behind the casino and killed himself. Story 13. I have several stories. I worked as a cashier and also a slot attendant for 5 years. The worst was when a guy was just sitting at a slot machine with a bewildered look on his face, like he was in shock. I asked him if he was okay, could I get him a water? He just looked at me and said, "I need help, man. This just isn't fun anymore." I called my manager on the radio and asked him to grab a casino host, then sat down with him. A casino host couldn't help, but he could take him to a quiet area to talk. My manager came by, I introduced the player and said, "Guy_name is having a hard time right now. Think we can all go somewhere quiet and talk?" The manager took it from there, but I felt so bad for him. He was just quietly crying in desperation and whatever realization he had just experienced. As a cashier, my first Christmas Eve there was the first time I'd ever worked on Christmas Eve in my 28 years. It was also the first Christmas I hadn't been with my family. Around 8 or 9 p.m., a lady came to my cashier window and asked for $250 in quarter tokens several years before paper tickets. I did the thing and she said, No, baby. You've got to put some extra luck on these. I need to win. I haven't bought my babies anything for Christmas yet." I tapped them twice, wiggled my fingers towards the quarters and squinched my eyes and said, "Done." That was all the luck I brought tonight. OL girl was tickled pink. She just knew she was going to get that jackpot for her babies. Another cashier sat with me at dinner break and told me it only gets easier after that. She lied. Last one for now was the lady who had just won a $5,000 or $10,000 jackpot on a dime machine. It was very clear she didn't want it. Turned out she was banned for her gambling addiction and behavior. She was begging to just forget we saw her and give it to anyone else. She just wanted to play. Unfortunately, the law is the law, and she was handcuffed by gaming officials and arrested. White, just thought of another good one. It was an employee this time. She got caught stealing tips players half to the slot attendant. The cool thing about casinos is when they catch you, they make note of it, save the video evidence, and do nothing other than add to a report. Once the employee steals enough, I think $500, it's a state felony because technically every non-player penny inside a casino is state property because it's state regulated. Like a bank is federal. So they catch a coworker stealing tips. One day she's just coming on shift and is counting into her jackpot payout bank when gaming stops by and starts talking to her. Gaming guys aren't friendly if they have to leave their office. They're like extra angry chihuahuas that haven't eaten for days and suddenly are being teased with hot dogs, small children's fingers, and pepperonis. Everyone in uniform stops and backs up. Then they start loudly reading her rights. Not only was she arrested, but she got called out in front of everyone she was stealing from. Story 14. I'm a NLHE poker dealer. I dealt a game a fortnight ago that was £500 min sit down and £5,000 max. It was a pound 2/pound 5 blind game with a mandatory £10 straddle. Guy who is running the game gets a phone call halfway through the first hour. There is silence at the table, as the guy mouths to us silently, "It's the Greek." The Greek is a legend among the players apparently. A total degenerate gambler with more money than sense. "Okay guys, the Greek is coming, he's in for £5,000. Basically everyone stopped playing until he got there. I would deal a hand, and everyone would fold or a small pot would be won. I wasn't even raking the game lol. The Greek sits down with £5,000. First hand, he doesn't look at his cards and open raises to £200. Over the course of the next 30 minutes, he punts off £5,000 around the table to almost everyone. He insta-reloads another £5,000. And then another. He's dumped around £12,000 into this game. Everyone is super deep stacked in winnings off this guy. He doesn't seem bothered. In fact, he seems happy and to be enjoying himself. We are all confused. Apparently this guy is prone to huge blow-ups and tantrums when he doesn't win. I overheard the game owner talking to him on a break from the game. Turns out he had an inoperable brain tumor, and he was enjoying his last few months. I felt sad for the dude because he was a lovely guy and was generous, but also because he chose to spend one of his last nights gambling a card table in an underground poker room, when he could be spending quality time with his family, etc. Story 15. I didn't work at a table, but I worked at the cage where you exchange your chips or tickets for actual cash. Some of the saddest I witnessed were people who just didn't leave it, stayed for upwards of 72 hours at a time just playing and playing, often casing their losses. One in particular that has stuck with me was this older woman who came up with a ticket from a slot machine. The ticket was for $20, so I exchanged it for her. The defeated smile when she said, "I might not be able to afford my rent, but at least I can use this to buy some groceries for the month," really hit me hard. She had spent hours at the casino just feeding the slot machines with everything she had. A lot of media like to glamorize casinos and how awesome it is to work at one, but from my experience, it was one of the most depressing places I've ever been. Sure, people would win money. There were big winners every now and then. But the amount of money those people had to spend to win big. Most of the time, they were lucky to break even. We had a number of deaths that happened there as well. Some were more horrific than others. Edit. Had a few people ask about the death that happened. The casino I was at had a more senior client base. It wasn't a young hip casino that brought in a lot of the younger crowd, while there were some. So on a number of occasions a year, we would have a customer die due to health reasons. My brother, who also worked there, had a customer have a stroke while he was serving him, and collapsed dead right there. There were also a number of suicides, mostly found in bathrooms, with something wrapped around their necks or pills. I've mentioned this before on a similar thread about the worst one I was there for. An older couple, I believe they were in their 60s or 70s, was leaving. The woman excused herself to go to the washroom while her husband went to get the car. Well, that wasn't exactly what he had planned. He took out a can of gas from his trunk, doused himself in gas, and lit himself on fire while sitting in the car. The security guards who tried to help suffered quite a bit of PTSD from that one. Story 16. Dealer, not in Vegas but still considered a large casino. The most heartbreaking losses always come from naive college kids or the regular single parents, but the largest loss I've ever seen was pretty entertaining. There's a regular at our casino that owns his own company, but also used to scam other casinos by having an inside man at his bank confirm credit over the phone that the player did not have. He's since been busted for this and will definitely be sent to jail once the case is closed. He still has a ton of cash and plays at our casino, being the only one in the area that allows him inside. A few weeks after he was caught, he came to our casino with 4 briefcases of $250,000 each and said, "I'm not leaving until the sign outside says, insert player's name, casino." Super upbeat and happy guy. Really nice to the dealers, probably so he wouldn't get kicked out. After 5 hours, my shift was over, and he was down $720,000. The smile on his face looked like he found the money in between his couch cushions. Story 17. I manned the roulette wheel for about 6 months back in my college days, and the most amount of money I ever saw someone lose was $2,500. He put $100 on 22 different numbers, red, even, and second half. I'll never forget his face when zero showed up. The most amount of money I ever saw someone win was around $12,000 or so, give or take. It was around Christmas time, and a group from a business Christmas party came in. The boss gave everyone $100, and she came over, put $100 on 13, just wanting to get rid of it and get home. 13, $3,500 instant win. She takes $3,400 back and puts $100 on 25. 25, another $3,400 net gain. I forget the third number, but she did it again. She then put $500 on one of the colors, forget which, and about the same on the thirds, forget which. She won the thirds, lost the color, and had me call security over to escort her to cash in her sips. This took her no time at all. She was very excited, talking about how much this money would help her.